So recently, some unfortunate gossip concerning Henry Cavill has come to light, with the allegations that he, in fact, was actively sexist and misogynistic on the set of The Witcher, which is a failing and continues to fail production by Netflix. Not even Henry Cavill, in my humble opinion, who really did his very best to save the show, was in a position to save it. It's so awful and so much of a train wreck that it's just impossible. And now he's gone. Now, the reasons why he is gone, it is alleged in this screed of a tabloid, it's claimed, is because he was very uncooperative, he was actively hostile to the women, in particular the showrunner and the producers, etc., and wanted to insert his own opinions and simply wasn't respectful towards his female colleagues. In addition to all that, they had asserted that he had succumbed to toxic bro gamer culture, whatever that is exactly, and gave a bunch of reasons as to why he left the show. He's no longer going to be Geralt of Rivia on that show, which doesn't make a difference. It just means the show's going to be even bigger train wreck through no fault of his own. I don't normally talk about this stuff, but I think it is important because there is that meme, right? Why can't you have nice things? Well, this is the reason. Henry Cavill is, of course, as close to a gigatrad in real life as you could possibly be. Incredibly wealthy, incredibly handsome, well-known, etc., but he's also a super nerd. This is a guy who spends hours painting Warhammer 40k models and has played The Witcher 3 at least twice through and has read the novels and is a fan of comics and is in general quite the nerd. So when he signed up to do this Witcher show, he had a certain vision which entailed staying true to the source material. The producers and the showrunners had no intention of doing that. They wanted to recast it into something completely different and ignore the source material. This singular thing was the cause of the claims and assertions being made about him, how he's difficult to work with, basically a misogynist, etc., just because he wanted to stay true to the source material. Because he is, through and through, a nerd. And this is truly the reason why we can't have nice things. This idea that he was being anti-woman couldn't be further from the truth, obviously. Although he has gone on record, if you remember during the Me Too issue, as saying, yeah, it's not good to harass women, but I sometimes worry if the Me Too movement might go too far. He did say that. So get this. You have an entire set of people who are totally uninvested in the actual story and material of the books and the lore of the Witcher universe. And this one man, Henry Cavill, who is, and because he's not being cooperative with them, because they are trying to warp and twist the actual source material and the story of Geralt of Rivia into something that has nothing to do with the original, or at least very little, he resists that actively, and then he's uncooperative and just difficult to work with, right? The screed about him was extra careful in saying that Henry Cavill didn't actually harass any of his female colleagues on the set, but he was uncooperative. He wouldn't do shirtless scenes with them, or romance scenes, or sex scenes, or kissing scenes. And by the way, he's gone on his record as citing this on occasion that he has been, quote-unquote, sexually harassed by females all the time, females he's been working with. Of course, when it's the reverse, it doesn't count. And you probably have to be a famous gigachad like Henry Cavill in order to get there in the first place. Nonetheless, hypocrisy is to be expected. But I honestly see Henry Cavill, not only in this instance, because he's just been let go of Superman as well, one of the best, maybe the best Supermans I've seen to date. He's been let go by DC for retarded reasons. And this is a guy, the only guy, who actually cares about the material. He cares about the fictional settings that these books and comics describe, and these video games describe. He actually cares about it. He's one of the few actors out there. And what do? They get rid of him from The Witcher, and they get rid of him from Superman. He tried to save The Witcher. It wasn't successful, but he was a damn good Superman. And there are a couple of moving elements here. One is the absolute indifference to the lore of these universes, these worlds that various authors over time have created. People who are not invested in this stuff, who don't care, for whom it's meaningless, throwing money at it or being involved in the capacity of producer or actor, actress, etc., versus someone who is invested in it, such as the fans who actually do care, and somebody like Henry Cavill. And the second somebody rejects what they're doing, their machinations, they simply assert that they're a misogynist. Okay. Now again, nobody should be surprised by this, but we should also reject the claim that we're just imagining this idea that this is why we can't have nice things anymore. Many of us, myself included, are invested in many of these fictional worlds and settings. And what happens? You hear some announcement that they're going to be producing whatever it might be. On Amazon, say, The Wheel of Time, which was a fantasy series written by the late, great Robert Jordan, great author, in the late 90s, passed away in the early 2000s. And it was fantastic. I remember reading it with great gusto and enthusiasm, because back then, books were probably my primary entertainment. And I thought it was really good. And I thought, okay, Amazon's coming out with it. But by then, of course, already the era of wokeism was in full effect. And so I didn't have high hopes. I later read the reviews. Trash heap. Absolute train wreck. We know about Lord of the Rings. Train wreck. I don't play Halo myself, but I heard at least Halo, train wreck. This is the biggest problem. And then these people who don't care about this stuff that we care about, misogynists, make other accusations that are both untoward and inaccurate, because they have nothing else. And the claims made about Henry Cavill are borderline retarded, which makes the veracity of the document and the claims made in it a bit dubious. Quote, he's deeply addicted to video games, to the point where it was like working with any other addict. He was distracted, he was elate, he was obsessive. And a lot of people think that the misogyny came from gamer world. Video game bro language is not how you talk to coworkers. And he wouldn't stop. Someone on the show compared it to watching get brainwashed by QAnon, like his whole personality shifted. Eventually, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this stuff is just absolute nonsense. So we know this isn't misogyny, whatever. It just so happens that on average, it seems to be the case that a majority of women are not invested in geeky, fantasy, fictional settings that have been created by men. Who would have thunk that most women aren't interested in those settings? And if they are going to be at the helm of a project, be it a game, a film, a TV show, that is related to one of these settings, they probably won't be as invested as someone who actually cares. A good example, historically, of somebody who cared is Peter Jackson, who created the Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit. All 6 of those films are quite good, by the way. Women, let's be honest, generally don't care about this stuff. They don't care about The Witcher. They don't really care about comic books, on average in the majority of cases. And on top of that, it seems that Henry Cavill is now slated to be part of a live-action Warhammer 40K. Now, you'd think Warhammer 40K, not personally into it, but know a little bit about it, very, very male-oriented activity. But I guarantee you that both wokeism and the quote-unquote feminine perspective will somehow be inserted in this stuff. Look, personally, I wouldn't have an issue if the people involved, specifically the women involved, actually cared about the source material, these fictional settings and worlds. But they don't. Clearly, The Witcher was a great example of somebody who just absolutely, from top to bottom, did not care about the content and the source material and the universe. Why does this matter at the end of the day? Well, it matters because for many of us on planet Earth, living out this tepid and very unpleasant existence at times, fictional world settings, creations, are our escape from it all, a refuge that we can go to, something that we can appreciate, enjoy. And these settings, through the power of the stories they tell, can sometimes even give us a sense of succor. What happens when these people come in and don't give a rat's buttocks about this stuff? They just ruin everything. This is why we can't have nice things. This is why we're not allowed to even escape anymore. And Henry Cavill is one of the few people I respect in Hollywood who could actually pull some of this stuff off. And he's being treated horribly. What's the point of creating films, TV shows, and even games if they don't really appeal to the core audience? I don't see it. I think there are a lot of reasons, gentlemen, why a dark future lies ahead of us. And if we're going to have a dark future, but no place to escape to, how much worse is it going to be? As always, thank you for tuning in. Please leave a like, share, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. And if I'm still alive, I'll check you out later. May the gods watch over you. Take care. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.